Do you find yourself exhausted, incredibly hungry, and often headachy after some of your big, long rides on the weekends? If that's the case, you're not alone. So in today's Ask a Sports Dietitian episode, I'm going to be answering the question that I commonly receive: what can I do to stop feeling so fatigued the day after big rides? I often get people telling me that they feel exhausted, that they're just so crazily hungry days after they've been doing these long rides on the weekend, and they want to know what they can do to support that. So thanks for joining me. I'm Dr. Gemma Sampson. I am an advanced sports dietitian, and I'm on a mission to help people fueling for performance. And I find that the key to that is practicing fueling your training and learning how to be really smart with the way you eat before, during, and after rides to get the best out of your training, to recover the most, and achieve your peak potential. Now, when it comes to feeling really fatigued during your training rides or after your training rides, I always like to encourage people to look back to the day before, the hours before, to looking for clues as to what's happened, as to why you might be feeling that fatigue, why you might be feeling that hunger, and what did you eat or what did you do in that situation. And typically what I find when it comes to these big long rides is that people aren't eating anything on the bike. They're not actually fueling that training session. And so it comes to bite them in the butt for 6, 12, 18, 24 hours plus afterwards. But because it's the delay and the lag time has occurred, they don't really see the connections between what was eaten on the bike and what was and how that sort of transpired to symptoms later in the day. So with the clients and the athletes that I work with, I find that this fueling during your training ends up becoming the game changer in terms of just calming down that appetite. And that I like to talk about it being like the Cookie Monster sort of situation, where you just can't control yourself, and you just, like, it doesn't matter. You're so hungry that you're going to eat everything and anything. And one of the things that I find is so helpful when people do actually start to fuel their training is it just calms down this like intense pressure and stress and anxiety that comes around food, and the feeling that they need to eat it now before it's going to run away. Because often that leads to overeating, and then later of the remorse of like, oh, why didn't I eat that? And the beating yourself up, and the cycle, which doesn't help anyone long term. So the first thing I would recommend you do in that situation is firstly, look at what you did in that training session or that big long ride. What did you eat? And look at how could I improve the way that I'm fueling in that? Because even if you're fueling 100 grams of carbs an hour, for most training sessions, there's still going to be a deficit in that training ride. And so I wouldn't be recommending people fuel 100 grams of carbs an hour anyway, to start with all training sessions. But I would be starting as okay, can we add 30 grams of carbs in here? And that might be as simple as a banana. A banana's got 20 grams of carbs. It might be a banana, it might be a gel, it might be a muesli bar, it might be a sandwich, it might be a rice cake. I always like to use real food and solid food wherever possible. But by adding a small amount of food in that training session, it just helps to calm down that deficit. There's still going to be creating a deficit in that training session. And I find that often people are hesitant to eat during training rides because of an underlying desire to lose weight, and trying to lose weight via training, in my experience, very rarely works. In actual fact, I find it's the complete opposite with my pro riders. They're fueling more than ever in their training sessions. They're going 80, 90, 100 grams of carbs an hour, and it just helps them to normalize the way that they eat afterwards. They recover better, they feel better, they get better power, they're getting stronger, they're getting leaner. So I would encourage you to go back and look as to what you're eating in those training rides, and start to think about, how can I add something in here? Real food wherever possible. Drinks and gels also have a place, but just start somewhere and look and make a note of, how do you feel before, how do you feel afterwards, and how does it support you in the next day? If you'd like to learn more about how I support athletes fueling around their training, I'd love to encourage you to join the Gemma Sampson Nutrition Cycling team. This is a really, really supportive group of people that I work with one-on-one. We've got regular workshops and online support and videos all about fueling before, during, and after training to help you reach your peak potential. And I'd love to see you there. And until next time, I'm Gemma Sampson, and don't forget to fuel your ride.